Hi, beautiful ones. I have an example about speaking your truth, but speaking it with love and not frustration and anger. And I have a couple, and I'll put them in two separate videos. But not too long ago, my car had to go to the actual dealership, and um, it's a little far away. And they actually did an oil change, and so it was, you know, quite a chore to get it there, and so I did. And the next, this would have been a Friday, and the next morning I'm come downstairs and I'm smelling this horrible smell. I went, oh no, I think something's dead in my garage. So I opened my side door, and in the garage, my car, there's oil like all over the floor. And I'm like, oh no, there's a major problem. And we've had cars that have had oil changes that either the plug's not in right or the pan's not back on or anything like that. So I'm like, uh-oh, I need to call the dealership. And I went out and I took literally entire, I would say 3/4 paper towel roll, and because I know it wasn't completely full, and I went and cleaned up the oil as much as I could, and it was definitely oil. I could smell it. It was a horrible smelling smell because I guess I use this crazy synthetic oil that just is horrible. So I called the dealership, and the dealership said, well, maybe you should get your auto, auto your auto policy to tow your car up here. And I know that my auto policy only tows so far. And secondly, I'm like, well, I think I only get X amount of tows a year, and why don't, maybe you guys should be responsible for, getting it up there. So um, her name is Taylor. Taylor was great, and she scheduled a tow, and we got it up there. And so this would have been, they were great. I know it was a disaster, but they had a car swapped and everything. But on Monday, I get a text, and it's Taylor, and she's saying that the car inspected fine and the oil was at 100%, and she has no idea what happened. And because of that, and there's no repairs, that they have to charge me for the tow, which was $180. And I read that text and I was like, wow, goodness, I wish, kind of wish that maybe allowed my tow to go up there, or, but then I thought, well, I can see where they're coming from, but I didn't respond. And then I took, a couple, I don't know, it took a couple minutes to compose, and then I just replied and said, I don't care for your response, which that's how I, felt. And um and but I was trying to process, because I think, well, she's kind of right, since there was no repairs and no one really understood what was wrong with the car. And so Taylor, I was very impressed, because she didn't wait too long from my text response to call me. And I was like, well, I'm just going to stand in my truth, and I'm going to tell her. So she calls and she's like, I don't think you understood what I said, about the car. No, I said, no, I know exactly what you said about the car. And I just want, and I get where you're coming from. And since there's no repair and the oil looks fine for the oil change, then I understand where you're coming from, but you need to understand where I'm coming from. She's like, okay. And I said, when I saw all this oil, I said, all I could think of was that I can't drive my car. I can't even turn it on because, yeah, I don't want the engine blown. And I said, everything I did was, I didn't want to cause your dealership to replace my engine and go through that process and be tons and tons of money. And also, it would be a little bit of an inconvenience for me too, because, I do love my car, and you would give me something different, not exactly, my car to replace it while you're working on it. And then I was thinking, well, I didn't tell her this, but also once, the engine's blown, there could be other things down the road that could, you know, be problems. And I trust me, I know this because when I was growing up, um, my dad was not a man who paid attention to his cars very well, and he blew a few engines. And yeah, I remember the ticking and getting stopped and stopping, and so I didn't want that to happen, and so again, I spoke very lovingly and from my heart, and it was my truth, and she said, "Oh, let me, I see where you're coming from now." And I'm like, "Oh, good," because that's the truth. So she went and go and talked to the service manager, and she called me back and said, "We will write off the tow because we understand where you're coming from." And I was very grateful and appreciative, and they took care of everything. And still, we don't understand where this oil came from, but as long as it's been running fine and oil is at 100%. So lesson they shared is that you get much more from calm, loving words, speaking your truth. Because if I would have got mad and said this is bull crap and you can't treat me like this and whatever, and or defensive, um, without a doubt I would have had the towing bill to pay for, and um, and so I have another story about speaking my truth, and I will get that in another video. Love you. Bye.